computer, so I don't know. Don't know if it's going to work.
Defending champion, welcome, Danny Batten.
You win.
Hey guys, I'm Sai, and welcome to the Danny Batten Fight Show, episode number 20, and our first live show as well, which is going to be fun. We're going to talk the UFC Jacksonville from last night. But just before I introduce my guests, a little bit of housekeeping. You can find all of our shows on youtube.com/ACEpodcastNation. If you could subscribe, that'd be doing us a massive favor. That's the best way to support the channel and all the different series we do. We do shows on mental health, football, films, TV, conspiracy theories, you name it. We do it. MMA, boxing. We've also got My Story, which is a series where we take actors, fighters, writers, bands through their careers and stories. Unscripted and Uncensored, where we have all sorts of guests, and we basically leave all the questions up to you guys, which are always a lot of fun. We've had what feels like every Cage Warriors fighter there ever has been. But we've had a lot of fighters, actors, we've had a band, we've had some footballers, all sorts of people. And one of the guests for Unscripted Uncensored was my co-host, as usual, Mr. Danny Batten, former Cage Warriors champion, UK MMA legend. How are you, sir?
Yes, I'm good, Ty.
Indeed, yeah, you did an Unscripted Uncensored, didn't you? You were still, I think, the most downloaded audio episode. Still holding on to that title, just about. I think there's a couple catching you.
I'll take that.
Take that, indeed. And I also had on Unscripted and Uncensored UFC fighter, Mr. Jack Shaw. So introducing my special guest this evening is head coach at Shaw MMA, top MMA trainer, Mr. Richard Shaw. How are you, sir?
I'm all right, Si. All right, Dan. I thought he was going to introduce me as Jack's dad then. That's what I've been labelled as. I haven't got my own identity anymore.
No. Top coach in your own right, isn't it?
Yeah, we're all good, buddy. Dealing with the madness, but we're getting through it.
That's it, mate. Just kind of, it's almost become the norm now, isn't it? Just to kind of just get on with it and just in lockdown forever, I think. So obviously this past Tuesday, we had my Danny and myself, and we had our special guest, Brett Johns, and we broke down UFC 249. And I get the feeling that Richard would have rather have covered that show, but we'll get into that in a minute. But Richard, what did you think of UFC 249, just overall thoughts?
As in on Saturday, 249?
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought there was some brilliant fights from the undercard. You know, Cerrone and Pettis headlined the undercard. I think that would have warranted a main event on some of the shows, and I think it was a brilliant fight. The main card, I just think it had everything, didn't it? You know, from start to finish. And it's just nice to see some MMA back. You know, I know they've had a lot of criticism for running with it, but I think, you know, these guys got in a living, and they're fit and healthy. And I think that, you know, there was enough precautions and safety in place at the event that if you want to do it, you know, you're grown adults in a confined and considered area, you know, let them get on with it. You know, we need some sport. We need a bit of normality in these crazy times. So I was all for it.
Yeah, I think the main, you know, as long as they can make it as safe as possible. And I think just generally, like life, whether it's sport or people need to get back to work. We were just talking about, you know, off air about like your respective gyms and academies and stuff. You know, you want to get back to work and back training, and if we can get back to some level of normality with some restrictions in place, then I'm kind of all for it. But I just wonder whether the people who've kind of taken the mick over the last couple of weeks maybe have prolonged it a bit longer for us all. But we'll see. So I'm going to ask, before we get into it, I wanted to ask you both a question, really, which was, as coach, Danny, have any of your fighters ever handed you their teeth during a fight?
No. I've never had that situation entirely, but I've had them hand me other things. There was a situation where we had a female fighter, and it was something like only a second ever fight, so there was a lot of nerves there. And when she come back to the corner, we did notice that towards the latter part of that first round, she was gagging a few times. And when she come back to the corner, she said she was going to be sick. And I had to promptly catch it in my hand so it didn't go onto the cage. So we didn't have any. That was something that got handed to me. I wasn't too happy about, but you got to do what you got to do. I stuffed it all in a towel, and we carried on our way. Luckily, she didn't ejaculate anything else at me after that.
That's grim.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
What about you, Richard? Ever had anyone hand you some teeth?
I had a lad used to fight for me, Chris Morgan, Ginger, proper old school guy from when we first started the team. And I say to this day, Ginger, not the best fighter in the world, but one of the hardest men you're ever going to meet. You could dish him punishment. And we fought down in Bridgend, and he got absolutely leathered, if I'm honest. He took an absolute pacing from start to finish of the fight. But he was one of them guys that nobody could ever seem to put away, just eat the punishment. So the final bell goes, and you probably know Kevin Reed, Danny. Yeah, he was refereeing.
Yeah.
Kevin Reed is a respected pro MMA fighter. He comes across, he says, "Sheikh, is this your fighter's teeth?" And he's got 2 teeth in his hand. I go, "Ginger, you had your teeth knocked out?" He goes, "I ain't sure, but I was talking." Open his mouth, and sure enough, 2 of his teeth had come out. He hadn't even realised, and the ref had picked them up off the cage floor. So not necessarily the fight they given me, but the ref did at the end of the bout when he was doing an inspection of the cage.
Excellent, I like it. But we'll get on to the Anthony Smith and Glover. I can't pronounce his surname. Teixeira main event, which was that was quite a good fight actually. But it's not something I've seen before. It was the teeth. But so we're going to just talk about the main card. So starting off was Michael Johnson and Thiago Moises. Overall, Danny, what do you think of this fight? And then tell me a bit about round number 1.
Yeah, Thiago and Johnson was really good fight. Thiago never really was unable to get started, really. Johnson was coming out really, really sharp. He was in southpaw, which can always change things up when you're in opposite stances. But Johnson was looking amazing. Thiago was trying to shoot in on that lead leg, but Johnson was stripping it back really nice. His intentions were to stand on the feet. It was just looking really good. It looked like he was really well prepared. It felt like Thiago was perhaps waiting on the counter, but a counter just wasn't bringing itself to be able to come out to play for him. It was looked quite a frustrating round for Thiago.
Well, what about you, Richard? What did you make of that first round?
Yeah, I mean, Johnson's he's a dangerous fight for anyone, isn't he? But he's predominantly a wrestler, which makes him so dangerous as a striker, doesn't it? Because it's a difficult job putting him on his back. But I felt that Moises' corner team, they banged it. They had it bang on at the end of the first round and said you need to hit the single, which he came out and he done. And to be honest, it's a dangerous old game when you play sit back into guard, isn't it? You play the inverted and come up with the De La Riva from underneath and go the footlock. But to pull that off against somebody of Johnson's caliber, it was a brilliant submission. I don't know. I haven't seen the performance of the night. Did he pick up a performance of the night for that? Do any of you got that in front of you?
I don't. I'll put it up now though because I'll be interested to know that because it was.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see because for me it was a bit of a lack. It wasn't the most exciting card from start to finish. There were some good fights on there, but for me, somebody to take a chance, hit a single, come underneath somebody and elevate him and look for a footlock, you don't see it very often at the upper tier of MMA. So props to him for pulling off the submission. As Danny said, he was up against it in round 1, so he has pulled it out of the bag there.
Yeah, it's not the first time in the night where the first round has gone one way and then maybe the latter part of the fight has gone the other way. But just while I pull up the performances of the night, Alan Jones says, Richard, silly question, maybe, but why are you nicknamed Shaky?
It's a bit of an anticlimax. I was 15 years of age, And one of the local businessmen took a bit of pity on me and give me a job collecting glasses in the busiest pub in Abertillery where I'm from. So I used to turn up for £6 a night, collect glasses and wash them and put them back on the shelves. And one night a barman didn't turn up, so they said, you're gonna have to go behind the bar. And it doesn't seem a big deal, but when I was 15, it was a terrifying thought. I was behind the bloody bar, I was bloody shaking like a leaf. And all the regulars started going, oh, Shaky, I'll have a pint of lager. Shaky, I'll have a pint of beer. And with that, a group of the Abertillery youth rugby team came in at the time. I was a bit older than me, but they knew me, and they started it, and it just escalated from there. Then, so it's not an exciting story, but that's where it's come from. A group of drunks at a bar calling me Shaky when I was 15 years of age, and I've never been able to get rid of the nickname.
Stuck. That's what elevator to stick that long from age 15. It's good effort.
I owned a pub once, and the phone goes on the end of the bar, and one of the regulars picked the phone up, and he goes, "Hello, yeah, nobody there by that name," and put the phone down. I said, "Dad, who are they after?" "I don't know, they're after somebody called Richard." He said, "It's me." He said, "I thought your name was Shaky."
I like it. Funny enough, I was the same. I started working in a bar, the local pub, and I was working in the restaurant, and then I had to go on the bar, age 15, and I was called Turbo because I was too slow. Basically, I was just at my own pace as a teenager. But there you go. So, fight of the night was the. Let's look. So, Drew Dober, he had the finish of the night. What is it?
Yeah.
Performance of the night, sorry.
Good.
And same for Glover, got that as well. And then fight of the night went to the featherweight match. I think that was on the pre-show. Was it Brian Keller and Hunter Azure?
Yeah, but Keller normally fights a bantamweight. He was the first name we were given when Jack made his debut, which we accepted, but the fight never came to fruition for whatever reason.
So yeah, no. So they didn't give out performance of the night or anything for that submission, which is a shame because it was a very good finish. So yeah, Moises, the second round didn't last very long, 25 seconds. Moises immediately shot down, dragged him down, and he applied a beautiful little ankle lock, and away we go.
It'd be interesting to see where Michael Johnson goes from here, because I think he's going to be one of these fighters, what I call a marker, where if you're looking for that top 15 spot, that's going to be the type of level fighter you're going to need. And so, yeah, I don't know what his contract is or what money he's earning. If he's on a decent contract, but I think he's probably lost a couple now on a bounce. I think, haven't he, as well? So he might be at risk of being cut as well.
Yeah, it's a good win for Moises because he can push on and hopefully get a ranked fighter now in the next fight and try and push on a bit, because to have a strong finish like that, Danny, you can't ask much more of him, can you?
Yeah, no, he's done really well. Just touching on Johnson, I've had a couple of my students that one of them does extensive training, or had done for many years with Johnson. And another one of my students had a brief training camp out there, training with him. And one of the thing that they said, his striking is really good, his wrestling is really good, but he had no regard for the ground. He's sort of that wouldn't turn up for the grappling classes. He was just there to bang, to avoid the takedown. And you saw it there. I mean, that leg lock setup, everyone's becoming, pretty well versed in leg locks, or for most people have been. He should have stopped that foot cutting over to the hip, because he already had the other foot hook in the leg. And that stopped his exit to stand up and twist out. He didn't. I don't think he knew how to avoid it being locked in. He should have been keeping that foot from going across his hip, standing up and stripping out. But he did no such thing. He was kind of a little bit lost there, really. He just did an old school method, which was trying to stamp the foot to the ground, not allowing it to be elevated to bring it into Achilles or a heel hook. But that's not enough these days. So that was a little bit disappointing, really. I think it's such a shame, because had he had a love for MMA in its entirety, meaning the ground aspect as well, I think he had the potential to be a real standout. But unless you're going to love all aspects of MMA, you can't make it just being a striker or just being a grappler. You've got to be truly all-rounded.
Yeah, agreed.
So, Richard, just very briefly, with the submission move, the ankle lock at the end, is that it? Once he's locked that on, is that difficult for him to get out of? If he's,
as Danny said, it's getting yourself out there, not allowing him to get himself into position. For example, he allowed him to reap the leg over, which locked the leg out. He didn't strip the foot off. And once it's tight, it was. I thought he was going to look for a heel out, but he went straight leg. I think, Dan, didn't he? He went belly down.
Yeah, he did. He went belly down on it.
And you don't see at the higher leagues a lot of straight leg lock submissions. So as you said, I think it's probably a little bit of disregard for the ground game, man. It's a nice bit of insight for me, because I've often wondered whether he is addressing the grappling when he's so good at wrestling and striking. Sometimes you find that they have that little bit of false confidence of, oh well, they won't get me down, but the guy pulled guard and done a number on him. So props to Moises on that.
Yeah. It was a good adjustment Thiago made, because he was just shooting for a single, but the adjustment he made on that second attempt was he shot in deep as if to attempt a double, and then collected up the single off of the double. Yeah. But I think when he was shooting for that single, it wasn't deep enough and he was getting a lead leg strip. But because he shot deep on that hip, potentially getting the double, he had to just do a normal sprawl, which he was able to then pick up the leg. So whether that was a planned adjustment or it just the way it fell, it doesn't matter. The fact is that he had one opportunity to win and he took it and got it with first attempt. Fair play to Thiago.
Very thorough sub, I got to be honest.
So next up was Andre Arlovski versus Philippe Lins. Richard, what did you make of this first round for this?
Well, all 3 rounds are boring, if I'm honest. I think it did. It reminded me of like a technical spar in the gym. I think Arlovski, again, is another one of these fighters. He's always dangerous because he can knock you out with a shot. So, his opponents turn up and are not rushing in. But at the same time, I think through his experience, he can technically outbox somebody now without actually rushing in and looking for a finish. But no, I was a bit disappointed because Lin was the guy's name, wasn't it, that he fought. He came in with a bit of a reputation, so I was expecting a bit of a barn burner. But it looked to me like a nice technical 3 rounds of stand-up. So I wasn't impressed, if I'm honest. I'm sorry to sound rude if that comes across rude, but
well, got to give your opinion, haven't you? At the end of the day,
they could, and there was no mix-up in it either, was it? There wasn't a lot of grappling or wrestling exchanges. It was predominantly a kickboxing match for 3 rounds.
Yeah, there wasn't a great deal to it. What did you think, Dan?
I can understand. It wasn't great viewing for the MMA, purist, because it was all just pretty much standing. No one really wanted it or intended it for it to go to the ground. Lins did impress me with his fluidity of his combinations, but he seemed to have to always wait for Arlovski to come forward to get it off. Although he stalked very well, he didn't actually stalk forward and actually initiate any of his own attacks. He was playing very much counter. So sometimes Arlovski stayed in the pocket a little bit too long in that first round, and he got tagged up. He managed to not get knocked down. But the first round I gave to Lins on the fact that he did get off some tidy combinations. And Arlovski was playing a different strategy as well. He was really switching stances, and coming in with a southpaw stance at times to do a step through jab or a step through crosshand, however you want to name it. That was a little unusual. Obviously, this is something that he planned to do against Lins. Because if anyone knows of Lins, he had a really, really good career before coming over to UFC, and clearly got tidy hands. But that first round I gave to Lins. It was a little frustrating. We weren't seeing something else in the mix, such as grappling. They was getting into brief wrestling exchanges, but breaking free from there, both clearly wanting it on their feet. And the issue you can have really with these heavyweights, although they're technically very, very tidy, they're just not as vibrant and exciting to watch as someone like Johnson.
No.
As soon as you get to welterweights and below, some of that striking can get quite flamboyant. It wasn't quite so. I still found it interesting to watch, really, just because of the strategies that were out to play. That was the thing that interested me. But as a viewer's point of view, it could have been a little bit boring. I agree with that.
I think that the heavyweight should have in their contract that they've got to approach the fights like Ngannou did on Saturday. And then everybody's going to be happy. Somebody's going to sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the way. The best ones to watch, and it is what it is. It didn't really improve as the rounds went on. Did
I felt nobody pressed for the finish.
yeah.
I always encourage my guys, you don't rush, but you should always be looking for that finish, whether it's a KO, TKO, or submission. And I just felt both were happy. As Danny said, Alaska got caught a couple of times in the first round. I felt second and third. Then it was just a tentative approach from both guys.
Mm.
Yeah, there wasn't a great deal to it. Did you have Alosky winning?
It was close. I had Lynn's first round, and you could argue Alosky pinched 2 and 3.
Well, you Dan, same.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. Yeah, I felt like Arlovsky had sort of like figured out with his experience, and the good thing is, the interesting thing for me is the strategy. Arlovsky's been in a lot of hard fights. He's an aging competitor compared to Linz. He can't go at that vigorous pace, and I think he realised the danger was always coming when he stayed in the pocket too long. He kept it to singles, doubles, strike combinations. He didn't go to stay in too long, and I think that's what nipped it really. The fact that Linz, although he had good stalking capability, didn't have great attacking capability, and he was left receiving on the outside. And so when he did shine, it was just a little too little throughout the whole duration of a 5-minute round. And Arlovsky was just steadily scoring throughout much of the rounds. And that's why I gave Arlovsky the nod on the next 2 rounds after that. I just think overall, you're going to see Linz come through and shine if he learns from this sort of experience. He's got to learn to use those really good combinations in a way where he can initiate the attacks as well, to stop something like this happening, where he fights a veteran that can come with a lot of different tactics and strategies. But well done to Arlovsky.
Yeah, I feel Dan got it, but Linz came in, like as you said, a really good career outside of the UFC. A bit of a reputation coming in. For me, Arlovsky is the type of fighter now. He's on the tail end of his career. That's the sort of fights you've got to be winning. If you've got aspirations of becoming a top 5 or a champion, that's the type of fight you should be going in and being confident that you can win that fight. Well, not necessarily finish, but at least win that fight. And I don't think he pressed and done enough, to push forward and win that fight rounds 2 and 3.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, what was next? We had Ricky Simone versus Ray Borg. Now, I enjoyed this one because there was some real good grappling and some good stuff. What did you think of this one, Richard?
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I always enjoyed watching Simone. He's exciting, isn't he? He's a good wrestler. He's explosive. He tags you up on the feet. Again, the only thing I'm going to say about Simone, the amount of dominance he gets with the takedowns on the ground, the last few fights, for me, that was a fight that he had enough opportunities here, I think, to finish. He had enough good positional dominance in 3 rounds against Borg. He took him down a will, didn't he? When he wanted him down, he got him down. But Borg's a wily old character. Is Borg fighting at 60 at the bantamweight regular now? Because he's had a lot of fights at flyweight, Borg, isn't he?
Yeah, but I think the last 3, or maybe even 4.
He's come up. Yeah.
He was missing weight, wasn't he?
Yeah, right. And Borg is someone that I always want to do well. The story with his child not being well, and in having to look for funding to support that. And he missed out on the fight when Conor threw the bloody chair through the bus window, didn't he? Yeah. Glass in the eye and all the rest of it. So he's someone I wanted to do well, but it was a bad match. I think Simone's a tough fight for anyone in that division. Because he's very, very good at what he does. He's very good at pressing the pace. He's quite happy to engage in the strikes. He'll hit a takedown, and the commentary said several times you could just see the difference. I think it was Danny Batten saying about the difference in what looked like a difference in strength when they were in them exchanges on the floor as well.
Yeah, Ricky Simone is really game, whether it's on the feet or on the ground, and you've got to be very, very good to get one over on him.
Dangerous for anyone. Doesn't matter if they're right. It's a dangerous fight for anyone in that division.
Oh yeah, Danny, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, I was really excited for this one because I've been impressed with Ray Borg in the past. And when I saw this was a matchup that was going to be on the card, I was really unsure who was going to really take the dominance. But yeah, it quickly became apparent that Simone was going to be the one that was a little crisper in the beginning with his striking, could put his combination of striking into takedowns really well. He's really changing levels, and Ray Borg's got a pretty decent wrestler in his own right.
Yeah,
So he was defending the first takedown attempt, but then was getting switched up into second and third. The chain of takedowns was just so clever.
He's very good with the pressure, Dan, isn't he? Just keeps chasing that takedown. Yeah, he's relentless.
Yeah, he was a physically strong guy, clearly. But I absolutely agree. It was really well observed by Richard there that he had so much time in potential dominant positions. He just lacks a little finishing capability.
Yeah,
perhaps doesn't open up the ground and pound so effectively. If you have a look at some of his ground and pound opportunities, he was really down low trying to keep control.
Yeah.
It might be the case that's that weight division. Maybe they're just so wriggly that they can't posture up like they can in the heavyweight division. So it might be a case of different weight divisions, the opportunities to finish come alike more so in the sort of like the lightweights to middleweights, and these sort of weight divisions they're so lively and fast. But you would think that it would be able to find a finish with the amount of time they had in dominant positions. But Ray's a tricky customer. He's very, very high level in all areas. But what impressed me with Ray Borg was that he started really coming to life with his combinations of strikes. He started really ripping to the body.
Yeah,
I think if he just applied that strategy in that first round, he may have had a chance to perhaps get some successes, which may have turned the tide. But I think he lost that first round quite big, and come the second or third round, although he started getting some successes, he already slipped behind really on the card, he had too much to do for that final round. Simone's just too good to try to think of trying to put him away in that third round. He's clearly very, very fit as well. The pace didn't stop.
He keeps the pace, doesn't he? One of the judges scored it for Borg, and
I don't get that.
Don't get me wrong. There's some fights we can go, it was a tough, close fight, but I can't see in any way or means that how anybody could score at least 2 rounds to 1 for Borg. That's just my take. I don't see how you could score that.
I absolutely agree. I think what was it? Something like 8 takedowns or something. 8 takedowns. I mean, being taken down 8 times, and the striking was not conclusively in favour of Ray Borg. He just really shined with his combinations in the latter part of the fight. But the striking was still pretty close. I mean, how do you score it for Ray Borg? I'm baffled by it.
Yeah, and especially when you consider the successes that you mentioned with his striking, they were right at the end of the fight. They wasn't like they were intermittent, throughout the rounds. Now and again, it was like not a flurry, but it was towards the end of the fight. So yeah, I agree with that completely. We've got a couple of questions for you, Richard. Gaz wants to know: are your thoughts different for dad to trainer in regards Jack fighting in the current conditions?
No, it's a tough one. I mean, if we could have a proper training camp, I got no problem with him fighting in the current conditions. They're fit, healthy young men. They do all the testing. The issue I got at the moment is that we can't open the gym, so we're not in a position where we can put a prop. Jack's at that stage of his career where we can't do anything half-hearted. It's got to be a 100% fully fledged fight camp. We can't afford to go in 60-70%, pick up a loss, and then we've got to rebuild. So and that goes for any of my guys, to be honest. And how are we going to get there? I know they talk about Fight Island with the UFC, but there's no planes leaving the UK at the moment unless it's essential travel. So, how are they going to get us to these places to fight? So, to be fair, they done like a conference call with Dana about 2 weeks ago, and Dana actually said to all the fighters that you mustn't feel obliged to fight. If you're not training and your gyms are closed, it will not be held against you if you decline fights. So we've not had anything offered us at the moment, and none of my guys, the 3 that we got in UFC, none of them have had anything put in our direction because we just can't get out of the country at the moment. So we're in a bit of limbo until July at least. And then I would, it's not like you're in the gym, and Danny, I think you'll attest this. I got guys in the gym constantly training when we're in normal times. If the UFC say, right, there's a fight in 3 weeks, we're good to go. We can prepare in that 3 weeks because our level of fitness and our level of sharpness is at a decent level already. But when it'll be, probably you're looking at 5-6 months possibly out of the gym with no sparring, no grappling, no pad work. It's a really difficult situation. So, we'd want an 8 to 12 week camp ideally to get back into the groove of things.
Yeah, and I think that's, it's fair enough. And at the end of the day, like you say, whether it's Jack or whether it's anyone, all fighters have, they're entitled to have the best preparation for a fight, unless you're taking a fight, on last minute notice, which is obviously a different scenario. Do you have the right to have like a full fight camp and stuff? And I did wonder when I looked at these cards over the last, 4 or 5 days, how many of these guys have been able to have a full fight camp. Like we talked a bit about it with Brett and Danny on Sunday, in that, some of these guys, they only knew they were fighting a couple of weeks ago. So how much of that lack of training camp has come into their performance on the night? And I know, you might get financially rewarded or whatever for coming in late, but it's difficult, isn't it? Because a couple of losses can be the difference between keeping your spot and losing your spot. So
yeah, 100%. Agreed.
Just very quickly before we move on, David Llewellyn asks, as a coach, Richard, who encourages tournament participation, what's your view on martial arts as self-defense versus as a sport argument?
What's the question again? What's your view on self-defense against sport?
What's your view on martial arts as self-defense versus as a sport?
I think you've got to have a bit of both. I think competition is brilliant. Even at my age, when I'm fit and I can manage with injuries, I still do the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu circuit, and I'll enter some competitions because I enjoy it, and it's good for you. Particularly for youngsters coming through, I encourage tournament participation for the sport jiu-jitsu, just for the fact that I'm getting used to the nerves of fighting, against somebody that they don't know with a crowd watching. And also they've not got to worry about being punched in the face or knocked out in front of all their friends. But I think there's an argument, like I'm an old school guy, where if you learn jiu-jitsu purely as a sport, so for example, if you've got no takedowns because you're quite happy to sit guard all the time, you may be one of the most elite grapplers in the world, but you're going to come undone in a self-defense situation because you can't just drop your backside on the pavement, can you? Because somebody with no training, they can just simply soccer kick you straight in the face. So yeah. Don't get me wrong, against an untrained idiot, this drunk, 99.9% of guys that are well equipped in sport jiu-jitsu should be able to manage themselves. But there's some really dangerous people out there. I worked in pubs and clubs for 20 years, and some of the meanest, nastiest people I know have got no martial arts training whatsoever, yet they'd be an handful for any trained fighter out there. So I think self-defense is about getting the balance right. Even if somebody doesn't want to do MMA or boxing or kickboxing with a strike, once a month we try and do like a self-defense class within the jiu-jitsu syllabus that we do at our gym, where the guys will chuck some gloves on. They've got to do a bit of wrestling in the gi. I think if you award somebody a black belt in any art, that person should be able to have a good standard of self-defense on the street. So that's my take on it.
Good show. And finally, for the question for now, Danny, Gaz wants to know who's the most promising fighter at BST currently.
Okay.
You on the spot.
This could cause some in-club arguments because they're all really competitive with each other. We've got a lot of young, tall talent coming up through. I mean, I'm going to keep it to the pro fighters because we have got so much talent coming up as amateurs that run our pros already close, already in training. So obviously they show a lot of potential. But the one that's shining through with the most promise at the moment, I'm going to have to really mention too because they're both really close in their abilities improvements recently, is Jordan Bavanchik. I think I'm pronouncing his surname. I'm really bad with names, and you'll know better, are you, Si? We always struggle with these names, but Jordan's definitely a stand. He just seems to have everything about him, and on top of all that, he's a nice lad. He's not only intelligent, he's willing to change and admit he's wrong. meaning to make those changes. He has a massive desire to win, but understands that losing is part of it as well. He's just such a well-balanced individual. So I've really got high hopes for him, and an incredible natural athlete. Obviously, that's part of it that has to be part of the equation too. Incredible athlete.
How old is he, Dan? How old is he?
I think he's 22, 23.
22. What weight does he fight at?
Featherweight. He has fought at lightweight as well, but he's a featherweight.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He can walk around heavy, but now he's got everything down proper. He's got a dietitian and everything.
He's pro now, Dan, is he? He's turned pro, is he?
Yeah. He's doing well. Really, really good striker. I mean, he's just beginning to sort of like outgrow me in terms of doing the MMA now. I'll jump in when I feel really, really good, and I can see that he looks a little bit tired. I'll jump in there and maybe be able to hang on and make it to the end of one round if that's the case. But I don't relish the idea of getting in there with him when he's fresh. And the other one really is Modestus, because he's just got the signing for UFC. Frustrating times for him. Just got where he's dreamed to be, and now we got this situation. I really feel sorry for the lad. And Modestus, again, but a super soft-hearted individual, but the desire to win is it's the strongest I've ever seen. I mean, the guy is absolutely living MMA. He really is. And
he carries himself well as well. He carries himself well as a champion as well, I think.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. I mean, I have experienced Modestus have his criticizers, behind the scenes. I know he's partly, because he's got a really close connection with his dad, and his dad is an incredible martial artist in his own right, by the way. His dad is going to come out to be one of the top coaches. He's going to get known for his coaching. When you see these guys train together and the pad work sequencing, I've never seen anything like it. It's to behold. When I watch them in the warm-up room together, father and son, I'm just like, wow, it's just like watching a seminar demonstration. It's truly impressive. So yeah, it's really between those two, and I don't mean to take anything away from the other fighters. They're all at different stages, but they're the two that are really flowering, so to speak.
Yeah. It must have been gutting for. I was talking to Jai Herbert this week, and he was in the same position with Dessa, due to make their UFC debut, and you had the carpet pulled from underneath him a week out. It couldn't be any worse, could it? So near yet so far, as they say. And then with no idea, Dan. I think the British guys will be lucky to get a fight this year, if I'm honest.
I'm in total agreement. I can't see how they're going to get fights, especially the ones who are international, because there's obviously no means to travel. And as long as we're on lockdown, there's going to be no events being planned. Yeah. And even once we come out of that lockdown, and then people have got to start to try and book venues. Everyone's going to be booking venues for different other things, not just MMA. So I just don't know. I just don't think anyone's going to be fighting in any meaningful way this year. Maybe on the amateur scene, but pros, I can't see it. I don't mean to be. It's not being negative, it's being a realist. I just hope I'm wrong, but I can't see that I am.
There's also the logistics of whether any of the venues are going to allow large crowds, unless it's a televised event where they can, like Cage Warriors are fortunate that they got a UFC Fight Pass deal and they can afford to do a closed doors event, for your grassroots level, like the Cage Warriors Academy shows, in our area, your adrenaline fight nights and things like that, it's going to be impossible to prevent them, because without the fans, you haven't got the income coming in to pay the fighters. So we're proper in limbo at the moment. Yeah,
it's difficult then, isn't it? Back to the card. So next up was the fight of the night as awarded, which was Alexander Hernandez versus Drew Dober. Danny, we'll start with you for this one. What do you make of this?
Yeah, this was another, firecracker of a fight. I really, really enjoyed watching this one.
My favorite fight.
Fernandez looked really sharp with his wrestling, and he got Dober down, didn't he, briefly, which he needed to do, because Dober was just, he was just like a ground out the blocks. He was just gunning, absolutely gunning. Maybe slightly overcommitted, which is what got him taken down a little bit easier than perhaps he should have been. So really close first round. I would just have to edge it for Fernandez, but he didn't look comfortable in there with that pace. He was running around the circle, the outer perimeter of the cage, and managed to score those takedowns. So those takedowns really for me were instinctive shoots because he had to. That was all he was left to do. I just didn't feel like he could match the striking forward motion of Dober. So yeah, I gave it to the first round to Fernandez, but I was wondering how his nerve would hold up in the later rounds.
What about you, Richard?
Yeah, I felt it was. I felt Dober pressed the fight in round one. Hernandez got the takedown, but I didn't do anything with it. And towards the end of the round, I think he stuffed a couple then as well, didn't he? He managed to get the underhook and turn it off. But you can see that he trains with Gaethje, Dober, can't you? You know, just his approach, his walk forward, walk you down. But I thought Dober's footwork was brilliant, and it's an underestimated thing in MMA. You don't see a lot. Like, we work closely with some top level boxing coaches down. You've probably seen what they've done, and I appreciate footwork. And what he did, he didn't chase him in circles. He was side to side, making him move around the outside. But you know, when they exchanged, he ripped the body nice as well. He put some lovely body shots in, and again, that's another underused tool in MMA, I feel. But Dober really, really impressed me. And Hernandez is one of these characters. To be honest, he got him a bad books when he was disrespecting Cerrone. I mean, whenever you fight Cerrone, I just don't see there's a need for you to badmouth the guy. He's been there, seen it, done it. He's going to turn up and fight. And then I thought, well, maybe the occasion got to him. And even after Cerrone lost to McGregor, Hernandez was there, wasn't he? Publicly slating him at the UFC event. So I really believed, this kid must have just had an off night. You know, he's got a lot of self-confidence, but I just felt Dober done a number on him come the second round, didn't he?
Yeah.
You know, but as Danny said, I think he nailed the shoots in the first round. Dober worked him out, managed to stack in the underhooks and was underhooking and turning him off. And I think he took the fight out of him with the precision. And there's nothing worse than, you know, this, Dan, when you've got somebody that's in your face, keeps coming. You take him down, he gets back up, keeps coming. And I think that he just broke him. He broke him in the second round more than anything. He broke his will to fight.
Absolutely great. And you could see that he got broken because there was a time when he got Dober down and Dober easily shimmied his hips back and got up. And Hernandez paused, stand back to his feet. Yeah. It was almost like he knew that he was up against it. Absolutely impressive performance by Dober. Yeah, he really put it on him. And started landing some crisp shots, and he was just relentless on him. So impressive. And you're right with the footwork as well. You've got to remember, footwork is your first line of defense against a striker, because you know if you're elusive, it doesn't matter how hard the opponent's punches. If he can't find you to land it, it ain't going to matter. People might think blocking is the first line of defense. It isn't. It's your footwork. But also equal to that, when someone's trying to use a footwork to be evasive, you've got to equally match and more so with your footwork coming forward. Hernandez was really gauging on the outside of the cage to try and get away from Dober, and Dober was quite comfortably shutting him down with superior forward coming footwork.
Cut him off loads of times, didn't he? And his style of fight and the way he pressure, and you know, he's throwing a bit of venom in most of his punches. Yeah, again, he's another lad that's going to be a dangerous fight for anybody at 155. Yeah. Do you know, I'd like to see him fight? I know he's coming off a loss. I'd like to see him fight Michael Johnson. I think that'd be an interesting fight. Yeah,
that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Yeah. The moment you were referring to, Dan, where Hernandez got him down because he had just been rocked, hadn't he? In the second round, and he got rocked. So he did the right thing. He took him down. He had him in a good position, but instead of trying to hold him down and maybe progress that way, he kind of was too low down, and he didn't have a great grip on him. And he just, like you say, Dober got up so easily, and it was almost at that point that he realized, I'm done, because he took a couple more shots. And I think it was either when he got up or just after he got up, he got hit, and he kind of leant against the cage as if like he was just in resignation. But to be fair to him, he got a chin on him because he took some big shots, and you know, he didn't go down properly, like he didn't get KO'd. But impressive from Dober. Next up was the big boys, the heavyweights. Ben Rothwell versus Ovin St. Preux. I was very interested to see how Ovin St. Preux was going to do heavyweight, but also Ben Rothwell is he's no mug whatsoever. He's a good fighter. He's beaten some massive names. So Richard, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, again, it was a split decision. I thought I can't see how anybody could have scored the fight for OSP. I felt again, it wasn't the most exciting fight, but I felt Ben pressed forward. He pinned him on the cage quite a bit. Head under the chin, was working shots. It wasn't a great fight, but I think Ben done more than enough. Don't get me wrong, OSP got the knockdown right at the end of the third round, didn't he? But I don't think it justified enough for him to win the fight. I don't know what Danny's thoughts are on it, but if I was judging that, and under the criteria they ask you to, you could even argue, 2-1 or even 3-0 to Rothwell, I felt.
Yeah, I certainly didn't think that he did enough to win the fight. And like you say, I was in and ahhing on that kind of, I think it was the third round, but I thought Rothwell won all of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was the third round, wasn't it? Because right at the end of the fight.
Right at the end, he caught him with a lovely shot, didn't he, and dropped him right down the bell.
What about you, Dan? Did you see it quite similar or anything different?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very, very similar. I mean, both of them, they're not pretty looking fighters. Rothwell is impressive in that, he doesn't have a really good tight guard when he strikes. He doesn't deliver a strike technically 100% correct, but he's just such a forward plodding guy. He's smothering. I imagine it's really frustrating to be in there with this guy because you can have a better technique style, but he'll come at somehow. He'll just smother it up. Must be really a difficult prospect to defeat a guy like that. Look, he's got a formula that wins quite often, although it's not pretty. People have to figure him out. Nevertheless, he's brings something to the table that is a little unusual, a little different, but he gets the job done, and he gets it done time and time again against guys on paper you would look at stylistically and think that they might be better gifted fighters and athletes, which they can be, but nevertheless, he's got a little style going about him that's hard to break. He does the same with everybody, no matter what he's up against.
He's a big lad as well, and he uses his weight well, doesn't he? He pins him on the fence and gets his head under the chin. Yeah, I think he's 260 pounds. So I think he's on the limit. He's a big man, And people forget about his experience. I watched, you know what it's like. You end up on YouTube watching videos you've watched many times again during this bloody lockdown. But I watched the Renzo Gracie documentary. And I missed it in the first time I'd ever watched Renzo's documentary that when the Miletic camp fought the Renzo camp in the IFL, wasn't it? The fight leagues they had in America for a while. So it was Team Miletic against Team Gracie. Ben Rothwell fought one of the Gracies on there and won by TKO as well. So he's been around a long time fighting professional MMA, So he's he's another one, Ben. I don't think he's ever going to be world champion, but he's a bad fight for anybody in that top 10. He's dangerous, isn't he?
Yeah, he made his debut in 2001, professional debut, and also he, let's not forget I think people assume because of the size of him and also, that he sometimes doesn't look technically the best with his striking, that, he submitted Junior Dos Santos, no mug whatsoever. And I can't remember who he called out at the end now. I forget who it was, but he called someone out, in his very kind of quietly spoken way. I forget who it was. What would you, Dan, what do you think's next for Ovin St. Preux? Because I wasn't.
Didn't he just he come up a weight, didn't he?
Yeah. It was a one-off. It was just they said before the fight it was just for a one-off fight, wasn't it? Because of the circumstances around the training. He weighed in 240, mind. He's a big lad, 240 pounds.
Yeah. He is a big lad. I mean, maybe he could have another punt at this weight. I just think it was hard for him to get any of his game off against Rothwell, but you can't take anything away from him personally for that. Rothwell just seems to do the same no matter who he's up against, it seems. I mean, maybe have another punt at that weight to see whether it will suit him. And when you're first going up to different weights, things are a little bit different with it. It takes you a little while to acclimatise to that new tempo. I wouldn't mind seeing him fight again at that weight, just seeing whether he can make adjustments to it.
Yeah, I mean, what's the power difference? So say someone who's fighting at light heavyweight and then they go up and fight a heavyweight, or any weight really, if you go up a weight, do you notice, is there a considerable difference in the amount of power coming your way from the strikes, Dan?
I fought over two weights. I was a champion at 70 kilos. Partly because that was the lightest weight that there was. for my early part of my career, I gave away up to 10 kilos, a good few times. And the only reason I got away with it back then was the fact that there was still a big technical level between different camps. There wasn't a huge amount of BJJ around at the time. I was just really lucky to latch onto Liasdor, in the 1990s. And my first ground style really was a Japanese shoot style. And I took to the ground really well. So I had a little edge over most people technically, and that's what saw me through. That and being really, really fitness. I was really into my fitness, and so I was really well conditioned. So yeah, I can vouch for that when you fight someone who's more skilled, who naturally is bigger than you, it ain't easy. Weight matters. Weight counts. It really, really does. So when I brought in that featherweight, it was a whole lot better. But of course, everyone's so much faster. So that's what I was meaning, really. If you are going to switch up your weights, which is another reason why I really respect Conor McGregor. Love him or loathe him, this guy's fought all over the place at the weight divisions. It seems. Yeah, agreed. And he's had successes. I think he's the only person, isn't he, to have knockouts over 3 different weight divisions.
3 weight divisions.
I think that's right. I mean, that's impressive. That really, truly is impressive. It can pose problems, but that's what I mean when I say that St. Pierre should perhaps have another dig at that weight, to really give himself a chance to know whether he's going to be able to make something of that division. But I don't know whether perhaps they're testing it because maybe he was struggling, because he does look like a big dude himself. Maybe he was struggling down at that weight. As your fighters get older, they quite often look at those heavier weight divisions. It depends where you are in your career.
He's never missed 205. What I say about weights is bang on what Danny says. What you got to remember in the lower division. So if you start off flyweight, 125, 135, 145, 155. So you've got 10-pound differences in each weight division. But then you go 155, then you go 170. So there's a 15-pound difference. So there's a big jump from lightweight to welterweight. Okay. Then you go 170 to 185, 15-pound again. Then you go 185 to 205. There's 20-pound difference. So as you go up the weights, the gauge, and then you go from 205 to 260. That's a massive gulf, and I think probably at heavyweight is the biggest issue you're going to have. I mean, if you have somebody like Rothwell then that's cut in to get down to 260, I know SP who's fought all his career at 205. There should be a huge gap there. As Danny said, you could feel the differences just in them 10-pound divisions. But when you started in the 15s or 20s, and then 205, a 55-pound weight variance, it's a lot, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, that is a lot. Peaches asks, Richard, have you ever fought yourself, or are you just stick to training?
Have I ever fought? Yeah. I've fought. I've fought for the old school semi-pro rules when it was headshots, and I've fought professional rules. I fought no headshot. I fought every single rule set you can have. Sport jiu-jitsu, grappling. I've pretty much done everything. So yeah, I've fought MMA between amateur, semi-pro, and pro. I had 17 fights.
Ah, okay. What was your professional record?
101 at pro for the full pro. I had a lot of semi-pro back in the day because, as Danny will tell you, the rules were you turn up, and there's a couple of times I was arranged to fight pro and to be semi-pro.
It was all over the place.
It was. I turned up for one pro fight where, for whatever reason, they wanted no elbows in line with UC MMA. Remember, UC MMA took the elbows out for it, didn't they? Cage Rage back in the day, and then we've turned up on the day, so I've had an 8-week camp, training with no elbows, and then they've dropped on us. Well, we're going to put elbows in. We're going to put elbows back in, which. It doesn't sound a big deal, but sometimes when you're game planning, I'm OCD and a little bit anal on these things when it comes to preparation for a fight. I was the same as a competitor, and I'm even worse now as a coach, But as Danny said, back in those days, if somebody missed weight, you just got on with it. If they changed the rule set, you just got on with it. The youngsters today don't know how lucky they are to have some real top-tier shows to be performing on, because they'd have had a heart attack down when a few years ago if they'd have turned up to some of the venues. So,
well, this is, I can't remember if it was on air or off air when you were saying that you you had actually seen me fight at that grapple and strike. It was done on an open mat. I think actually, but did Pat, I can't remember. Did he wear a gi? He used to wear a gi for a lot of his fights. He was a judo guy.
Yeah.
That's right. I can't remember whether he did now with our one. But I remember we turned up. I always weighed about 64, 65 kilos back then. And like I said, I was running late on this event. Got caught for speeding on the way down. Turned up a little bit late. And they put the weigh-in scales away. And Lee Asdell, my coach at the time, said, Pat looks bloody big. I mean, he's got not the tallest of dudes, is he? He's about 5'5", 5'6", but he looked like a breeze block. He goes, have you done the weigh-ins? He goes, yeah, 70 kilos. And he goes, well, my guy's only 65. We knew he was going to give away about 5 kilos, but he looks bigger than that. And he goes, where's the scales gone? He goes, well, someone's taken them. So Lee went and bought a set of scales, bought them in. He ended up weighing in at 75. So I fought that fight, and I remember throwing a leg kick. It sort of like hit his leg, and then he leg kicked me and kicked me up in the air off my feet. It was a horrendous experience. weren't nice.
No, the old way. I had this conversation the other week. I fought on. I can't remember the name of the bloody show. Mike Swambo used to run it. It was an event in Wales. So I took young Marshman was a young lad back then, and he just started fighting. Unified amateur, like it was semi-pro. So we were fighting a guy called Matt McCarthy. So it was the same day weigh-in, 84 kilograms. We turned up. It was in Splot Market, which is a rough neck of the woods in Cardiff, right? It's an open air market. So the scales were on the back of a Luton van. So we get in the back of this Luton van. There's no scales. There's no scales in, right? So I go, where's the scales? He goes, oh, they've been put away. I said, I got the scales in the car. So go and get my scales. We put them in the back of this Luton van. We get on, he's 84.5. So we've heard of the lad he's fighting, Matt, but we've never actually physically seen him. So they do a fighters parade. So they're in the cage. And I'm looking, I think, well, who's Marshall fighting? I can't see anybody the same sort of weight. And they go, next fight, Matt McCarthy against Jack Marshall. Matt McCarthy, step forward. This cannonball steps forward now. He's got to be 100 plus K, right? I look at Jesus Christ. So anyway, they have the fight. Marshman does what he usually does and stops him. So a week later now, this Matt rings me up and he goes, I'd like to come up and train. Would that be all right? So he turns up at my gym. I said, yeah. I said, mate, how did you make 84 kilograms? He goes, no, I didn't make 84 kilograms. I said, well, we'd arranged to do a same day weigh-in, 84. No, I weighed in the day before. I said, what do you mean you weighed in the day before? He said, they told me it was the day before weigh-in, but not to mention it. He says, so what I done, I turned up at Mike's. I said this, it gets better. So he turns up at Mike's gym. He's not there, the promoter. So he rings the promoter and goes, I'm at the gym ready to do the weigh-in. He goes, there's a scales in the corner of the room. Jump on it, tell me where you are. So he ain't even there. So he said, I've gone on the scales. I'm 98K. I can't get any lower. I'm dying. He goes, that's all right. If they ask tomorrow, you're 84K. So it's the first time in the history of MMA where they done a telephone weigh-in, not even a video weigh-in. Just took the guy's word for it. And that's what he was dealing with back in the day. It's ridiculous what we had to put up with. I tell you now, absolutely ridiculous.
Shady. Me and Danny, for the weekly show, we've been doing the retro kind of reviews. I think what we did UFC 7 most recently, and we've been looking at some of Jack's fights. We've had the first couple of the pro fights now, and watching the old UFC shows with the no weight limits and headbutts legal and groin shots legal. It's madness. And I asked Brett on Sunday, I said, after we'd been talking about Francis Ngannou's fight, I said, so we've been watching the old UFC shows. Would you take a fight against Francis? Bit of a size difference tonight. I think he said he'd take him, man, but
well, I don't.
Brett would shoot a double, take him down.
Well, the thing is,
I think he said he'd win by chewing his ankles off or something.
Yeah, that was it.
I'll choose his nuts.
Yeah, it's a tag team. All right, okay. So we got the main event to go, which was Anthony Smith versus Glover Teixeira, and it was a bit of a mauling. We got a bit to talk about, as aside from the fight, whether it should have been stopped earlier, the teeth. Anthony Smith had a good start. He did very well in the first round, not so well after that. What did you make of this, Richard?
I think that fight is a perfect example of why it's not an ideal time to be holding events, because Anthony Smith has got a history of doing 5 rounds standing on his head. He was tired after a round. He dominated the first round, I felt his striking looked brilliant. I thought, on paper, I thought Smith was a favourite going into that fight. He's had a brilliant win over Gustafsson recently. Put a good account of himself against John Jones. Glover's getting on in years now. And after watching the first round, I thought, oh, crikey, this ain't going the distance. I think he'll start. But he just got tired so quickly, which isn't a normal trait for Anthony Smith. He's always well conditioned. And I honestly believe that is a perfect example of somebody who's not had a proper fight camp. Glover, on the other hand, is one of these Brazilian dudes that's been fighting all his life. They've got that will to just keep going, whether they fit or whether they're not. I thought it was a fantastic spectacle to watch. I enjoyed it. Right, it was a real interesting fight from start to finish. First round I give to Smith, and then I felt Glover found his feet and took over from round 2 on. And again, I put a lot of that down to fatigue on Anthony's part. If I'm honest, I think Anthony in a full camp with a proper fight camp, it might have been a different result.
Do you feel though, Richard, maybe knowing that they didn't have a full camp, he went a bit too quick in that first round, and he maybe blew himself up a little bit? Or do you think he's got to go with what he got to go with? Fighters fight how they normally fight, don't they? Do you know what I mean? So if he's used to going in and pushing a pace, probably on hindsight, he'll probably sit down today and think, do you know what? I should have paced myself. I wasn't fight fit. But a fighter will go in with that mentality. Well, my last couple of fights have been 5-rounders. I can do it. I'm going to pressure this guy, and he's 40 years of age. I'm going to break him. But unfortunately for Anthony, and Anthony's a good guy. He's somebody I really respect and enjoy watching. I think he carries himself really well, and I just feel it. The camp would have had a big impact on that performance. Yeah, I think so. I saw a bit of criticism for Anthony Smith on Twitter and Instagram and things. I don't really pay much attention to that, to be honest. But people seem to forget that he did very, very well against John Jones. And like you mentioned there, he beat Gustafsson.
He stopped Gustafsson, didn't he?
Exceptional fighter.
Brilliant match.
So go on. Sorry.
Yes, I just think it's not it wasn't the Anthony Smith I'm used to watching. The first round, it was him, tough, walking, precision striking, on point. But I just felt the fatigue took over from round 2 onwards. Yeah,
I think so. Dan, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, I thought Smith had the first 2 on pure output. You start to know who's had what type of camp. Absolutely agree with that. And I think you may have seen the inkling of the current situation, how it's taken effect on some of the athletes. Smith did gas. I think maybe he knew he didn't have the gas sink and was maybe trying to get this over with in the first 2 rounds.
Finish it early.
And it didn't happen. But Glover is no slouch. They had both opposite style of defense as well. Smith is more footwork orientated. He has what I call a loose or an outstretched guard. You saw him take that to the stream, but that don't always keep you safe with someone's rolling their head and throwing in hooking heavy shots like Glover was. I just felt like Glover kept his heart rate really low, and he had a really nice tight guard. I think he was only getting tagged up partly because of obviously the work rate that Smith was bringing to the table, because I feel that he was trying to get it away in the first 2 rounds. But Glover was holding really tight and really relaxed. He knew he's got 5 rounds. And that he was loading up on those shots when he landed them, but he made them count when it mattered. Once he started to hurt Smith, he was then on it, then started putting the pace on him. I was just a little bit baffled about his strategy, because he would then shoot and take him down, and that was a head scratch for me. I feel like he could have had this out in that 3rd round, but he kept getting him off the hook for some reason. If I was in that corner, I would have been shouting out, let him back up, disengage, get the shots back on him. And if you are on the ground, rise up, posture up, ground and pound. The ref will step in.
Agreed. In the 4th round, he was chasing that rear naked choke for about 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think he had the hook. He had the hooks in. He had him flattened out at one point. If he'd thrown 6-7 punches, the referee would have stopped that fight, because he was in a. But I read a couple of things on Twitter today saying the ref should have stopped it in the 4th. Well, no, because he turned it into a grappling match, not an MMA fight. He was looking for the submission.
Yeah, exactly.
I pride my gym on the fact that if we hit that position, we take your back or mount. The last thing on our mind is submitting anybody. We're gonna strike you to a point where you're gonna give us a submission with ease, or you're gonna get stopped. Position. Pound, keep your hips heavy. When you get the back and you've got somebody flattened out, you should be finishing a fight at that level from there. I agree with you, Dan. If I was his coach, I'd have given him a bollock in the end of round 4 and said, you should.
I would have been annoyed. I would have been really
you're
annoyed.
going into a 5th round now. He's always dangerous, Anthony Smith. He could have thrown a windmill punch and catch you and clean you out. That should have been over in the 4th. I don't know if you've seen the highlight today. UFC shared the conversation they had in the corner where Glover apologizes to him. He's got him down. He's punching him and he says, I'm sorry about this, Anthony, but it's part of the job. And Anthony goes, it is what it is, brother. Just keep going. This is after he's given him the teeth. He's handed the teeth. And he goes, I'm sorry about this, Anthony, but it's part of the job. He's apologized. Have a look. It's on the UFC Twitter. It's a fantastic moment in MMA. I got to be honest.
That's beautiful.
That's brilliant.
I'm going to have to have a look. So you mentioned the referee there. Did you feel that, or you said you didn't think the referee really needed to stop it as such? Do you think?
No, I didn't feel
maybe Smith's corner, Danny, should have perhaps pulled him a bit earlier?
I think there was room to stop it at any point, but the camp know their fighters better than anyone else, and maybe they just know that that's something that they shouldn't do. It's a hard one. I know I've got different fighters that I know would respect my opinion on wanting the fight stopped if needed, but also know there's some that would never talk to me ever again if I never left it for them to decide when they've had enough. If the ref intervenes, and then so be it. But I really agree with Richard, really. At the time when the ref looked like he was going to intervene, he then started grabbing the wrists and looking for chokes, and it was really, really baffling strategy. Who knows? When you're in there, sometimes you're just doing what you do in training, and maybe that's what he done in training. Not all the time when you're in training, you try and keep lumping up your partner when you're on their back and they're getting a bit tired and getting a bit beaten. You maybe play a submission route. So maybe he just went into a little bit of automatic pilot there. But I'm not going to take anything away from his points other than that little strategical, questioning choice to go about it. It was a really impressive performance. You've got to remember this guy's 40 now.
Yeah, that's a four-fight win streak as well now. So he after beating Smith, you could argue he's put himself in line for a title fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's incredible. Four-fight win streak at at the stage of his career he's at now. Just quickly, Richard, did you think that the corner could have perhaps stepped in for Anthony Smith at any point?
I would have pulled out at the end of the 4th round, particularly when I noticed his teeth are out. And
he looked a bit disheveled.
He was. And my issue is this. As Danny said, I got the same in my gym. I got fighters that will respect the decision of fighters that won't. But the ones that don't have just got to take it on the head. My job is to protect them. And my job is to make sure they're safe and they go home to their families. I mean, a beating like he took, that has such a mental effect on some fighters as well. Some fighters don't come back the same after, because I promise you, if you watch it back now, we know that you can get caught up when you watch a fight for the first time. I'm one of these guys that will sit down and watch it without any volume on and just watch the fight the second time if it's one that I'm interested in, just to see how the fight really did pan out without any emotions. And I think if we watch that back, the beating he took in 3 and 4. It was a heavy beating. His teeth been knocked out. He was taking hammer for. To be honest, a part of me thinks, was Glover looking for the submission as he knew he had his number and was thinking, I don't want to put any more of a beat down. Particularly after you hear this conversation that he had in the corner where he's apologising for having to hit him again.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Is it because they're friends or he respects him so much that he doesn't want to do any more damage to him?
It does happen. It does happen. You see somebody where they know they've got the fight won and they'll finish it with as little damage as possible. But, it's a high stakes fight. It's a main event, and going into round 5, as I said, Smith could have thrown one from the hip, connected on the chin, and that's all she wrote. He could have come back and won. So, as a coach, I wouldn't have been happy with Glover, but as a coach for Anthony, I would have pulled him at the end of the 4th. That would just be my take on it.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. I tell you what, Danny, what would you give UFC Jacksonville out of 10 for a spectacle?
What are we doing as an average? We're doing a 5 as an average UFC, are we?
Yeah.
I would say a 6.5 if we can do halves. I would say 6.5 because there were a few fights I really enjoyed, and there was a couple of plodders. But the ones that were good were really, really good to watch. So I'll give it a 6.5.
What about you, Richard?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Danny on that. If we're doing halves, because I was 6-7, but so 6.5. It was, like I said, the Smith fight I enjoyed, the Hernandez Dober fight I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the Johnson Moises bout. I am watching the card. I'm gonna watch the card now tonight when the wife goes to bed. So I just glad to see some MMA back on telly, lads. I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. I'm just glad to have something to watch, which I've got a bit of enjoyment with.
Yeah, spot on. Absolutely. Okay. Richard, tell the people where they can find your new podcast, Shake, Rattle, and Roll.
Shake, Rattle. Do you like the name, Si?
I do. I love it. I really like it. Yeah.
This is what I think of me. Shake because of my nickname. Rattle because I try and ask some questions which will rattle them. And roll because I enjoy rolling. So that was where that came from.
I love it.
I've got
a really good name.
I've got Oban Elliott on Friday, and I got Goddard next week. So me and Goddard go back a long, long way. So we got some stories to throw out there for people on that one. You can find me on Twitter. I don't know what I am, mate. I'll be honest. I think it's Richard Shaw MMA.
MMA, I believe. Yeah.
MMA. And I think I'm just at Richard.Shaw on Instagram, I think. But we got Show Mixed Martial Arts, which is our key platform, which is on Facebook. We got a page on Facebook, Show Mixed Martial Arts, and an Instagram at Show Mixed Martial Arts. As you said, the gym's not open at the moment, but it's a state-of-the-art facility. And like I said, hopefully it won't be too long, and we'll be able to get back to business.
Indeed. And Danny, you're not on Twitter, but you're on Instagram, but you never use it. Have BST Academy got an Instagram and Facebook page as well? They have, haven't they?
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't run that.
You mean to tell me you don't deal with those? I'm surprised.
I don't deal with that outside of it now.
I'm
no,
surprised.
So before we wrap it up as well, I just want, you probably didn't notice, but I'll stand up. I'm donning a Away Day Apparel shirt.
Yeah,
fits wonderful. Really happy with that. Fits great on the arms.
Yeah,
really happy. So thank you for Alan for that.
Just really like it. Just wanted to show off your arms then, wasn't it? That was all it was.
I want to ask Danny a question if I can. I want to ask Danny a question.
Of course you can.
Because Danny, like me, has been right from the early days to now. What's your thoughts? Are you an advocate of the safe MMA process?
Yeah, there's some things that are a bit head scratchy about it, because the fighters have got to pay for it, haven't they?
Fighters have got to pay for it, but this is my argument on it. If you're a plumber and you start your own business, you've got to pay for some tools and insurance, haven't you? The fighters have got to pay for it. But I don't know if you've seen it, Dan. I had a lad, Dave Adicott, and for me, Dave is probably one of the most naturally gifted fighters that we've ever had at the gym. And he was back. We had a couple of spits of spats, but he's just so gifted. I really had high hopes for Dave, and he's due to fight on Cage Warriors, and we had the brain scan done, and pretty much they said to him that if he was the head of football, he could die. He had a clot on the brain. Now, without that brain scan, if I'd put him on any other event, if it hadn't been Cage Warriors, there's a chance he might not have gone home to his wife and kids. Or he could have even dropped dead in the gym. So we can get it done in Wales. The entire safe MMA process to qualify you for fighting, we can get done for 520 quid. Then for the next 3 years, it's 120 just to renew your bloods, medical and annual, because the brain scan follows you. So like a lot of people they fall into the trap of going, it's like, up in England, I know there's people quoting 700 to £1,000. If you come out to Wales, I can give you the package with our private hospital and we get everything done for 520 notes. But then if you look at over a 3-year period, it's 5, 6, 7, call it 900 quid. It's 300 quid a year just to have peace of mind that your brain is intact. Because I'll tell you now, I think if it opened my eyes, this situation really opened my eyes, because I was a little bit, it's expensive for the fighters and all the rest of it. But if that lad had died in the middle of a fight, that would have been me done. I'd have closed the gym down.
Yeah.
I don't know if because I've got a really good close relationship with Dave. I don't know if can you imagine me having to look at his wife and his kids and say he was doing something that I've encouraged him to do, and he's passed away. So I just think in today's day and age, it's better to be safe and sorry. Like in Wales, there's no money in Wales, and none of the lads got any money. But what we do, we sell it as part of the sponsorship. I mean, I've got no end of lads Safe MMA cleared, and not one of them's paid a penny. We've got it all in through sponsors and just advertising on Facebook and stuff. But there's a lot of guys slaughter it. And I think what'll end up happening, somebody's going to die on a show sooner or later that's not being cleared.
No, I'm in agreement with you there. When you first mentioned it to me, I've had a couple of issues where our fighters had to go through that process, which is all fine. But we got hit with the financial issue of it. It's like they had no money, and it caused a bit of stress. But when I had the discussions with my students, I explained it the similar way to yourself. Really, we're at fragile times, even still now in the UK. And we were talking about this on the previous podcast, wasn't we, Sire? About France has only just allowed it, MMA to come into their country. Anything like even an arm break could put it back to another decade of no MMA in France. And so absolutely there needs to be some kind of governing body that builds up strength to protect something that might happen, that will probably eventually happen at some point, because it's a combat sport. But let's look at boxing as an example. I used it as an example last time I spoke about this issue. It's so in place now. Then they do have deaths on a much more frequent level, but they're so they've got such a good structure there now that and they do everything they can to keep them safe, and they can hold their boxing still in place no matter what the fatality. But MMA don't have that.
No, we're not at that point yet, are we?
No, we're not. And America might get away with it, but I don't think the UK would. I think if we have a fatality, because things ain't in place as good as they could be, I think we're opening ourselves up to a big issue. We could be sitting in a position that France has just got itself out of. So in that perspective, I absolutely agree with you there, Richard.
I mean, the lad passed away on one of the Irish shows a few years ago, didn't he? And now in Ireland, the amateurs have got to be brain scanned now as well. So if you want to fight an amateur now in the Irish Republic or Northern Ireland, you've got to be brain scanned. It's a tough one. It's a difficult one in as much as I come from an area where there's no money. The guys that are working on minimum wage or unemployed. So, do you put the cost before fighter safety? I'll be honest with you, I was always mixed, but the Dave Adicott situation took me over the edge. And as a promoter as well, I don't want to have to speak to somebody's family and say, well, I didn't implement a safe MMA regulation on my show. So unfortunately, we didn't brain scan your son, and he's passed away. So I'm one of those. I'm an advocate for it. I'm just curious to see what your thoughts were on it, pal.
I went to I can't remember the name of the. Mark Goddard hosted it, and Rosie Sexton was part of the committee. They're like a self-elected committee, and I went along to it because I was kind of curious, and I had it explained to me in much more detail. You remember, I was the other side of the fence where I was just getting it from my students that I've got to pay this safe MMA thing, blah blah blah. It's moaning about us, and I try to explain to them, look, you've got to do it. If you want to fight on these bigger promotions, you get covered for a whole year thereafter. But Mark Goddard explained it very, very, very well. Rosie Sexton as well. I was really surprised to see how strong their views were on how important it was to keep these fighters safe, not just for the individual fighters, because they've all got families, like you're saying. God forbid, that these are people who are sons and daughters that could potentially be facing a fatality if things are not in place. But they really pushed the point over in a really, really good way. And as soon as they run another meeting, I'll be going to it. And what they were suggesting there was that you have got to get something, a proper commission put in place. America have it, and we've got to have it, and we've got to keep pushing towards it. But we've got to try to be convincing to the governments, which is not easy to do.
No, it's difficult, mate. It's difficult. The other thing as well, the misconceptions. I think people think the Safe MMA keep all the money, and they don't. It's a small admin fee every year. I mean, everything else is what you pay direct to the hospitals. It doesn't even go to Safe MMA. You pay your doctor for your medical, you pay your doctor for your bloods, you pay the optician for your eye test, you pay the hospital for the MRI, and then you just pay a small admin fee for somebody at Safe MMA to keep a register, keep a log, and keep everybody updated. So that's a misconception as well. That people think the Safe MMA are earning £600 to £1,000 a fight there. The money doesn't actually go to them, guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my rant on Safe MMA over, lads. Putting the world to rights.
No, that's good.
I enjoyed that.
Good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, guys. I could sit here and someone just said in the chat actually they could sit here and listen to the three of us talk for hours, and they were talking about when we were talking about the show. But I mean, I could listen to you two talking MMA and stuff for the rest of the night. But guys, I'm gonna have another guest. We'll have another guest analyst on next Friday for our live show covering the UFC midweek show, and you might recognize the name. I don't think I'm gonna have to change too much of the nameplate to my side, but we'll see. And we'll of course be back at the start of next week for the Andy Campbell football show, which is on Monday evening, with a very special guest because it's the 200th episode of Ace Podcast Nation, and I've got a former Manchester United and Wales international coming on, and I will leave it at that.
Come on, who is it?
I can't say. Surprise.
Wales and Man United. Clayton Blackmore.
Oh, you twat.
Am I right?
Yeah. I knew I shouldn't have said anything. Andy will be furious.
That's because I'm a Welsh United fan. Look, it's not many international songs.
Oh dear.
But we got some great shows coming up, people. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. We got all sorts of shows coming up, and on Sunday we have a new show as well, and a couple of live shows. But we'll be back with more MMA twice next week. Will be Tuesday and Friday. Friday is the live one. Richard, thank you ever so much for joining us. Danny, it's a pleasure as always.
Thanks, lads.
Really good.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed these little group ones. It was really good with Brett Johns. Richard, really good to rub shoulders with you. It's been really enjoyable.
Nice to bounce off each other, Dan, and listen to other people's opinions and views, isn't it? I take a lot from
it. Absolutely, yeah.
Indeed. Richard, if you could hang around for 2 minutes when we've just finished now, because I just want to ask you something, if you don't mind. But yeah, guys, thanks to everyone who's watched, left a comment, thumbs up, all that good stuff. And we will see you for the next episode. Play the clip.
Defending champion, welcome, Danny Batten.